How many in here have been affected by suicide or know somebody who has been affected by suicide? Please raise your hand. Look around, keep your hands raised. Pretty incredible. Suicide is the third leading cause of death in youth ages 10 to 14. It's the second leading cause of death in teens and young adults ages 15 to 24. Right now, my son and I are going to tell his story of how he almost became one of those statistics.
I was writing my suicide note to all of my friends, family, and anyone else that it applied to. I wrote it on my phone, set it on my dresser so that it wouldn't time out. And I snuck out of my one-story bedroom window and ran to this familiar place where I wanted to jump off.
Talon's suicide letter was surprisingly optimistic. He wrote, "Don't be sad that I'm gone. Be happy that I was there and that it happened." He wanted people to know that he wasn't depressed and he wasn't sad. It was nobody's fault. Talon just thought on a universal scale. He hadn't found his purpose and he felt like his body was a prison. He felt like he could do and accomplish much more outside of his body. So he wrote his 6-page suicide letter. He placed it on his dresser, kept it unlocked so it wouldn't time out, snuck out of his bedroom window, and ran 2.1 miles to an 8th Street garage in downtown Boise, which happened to be 8 stories high.
The cops were already there, but not for me. It didn't apply to me. It was irrelevant to me. I was there for one reason, and that was to end my life. I took the elevator up to the 8th story, got up on the ledge and looked down. I stood there for a while, observing everything, knowing that that was my last time on Earth. All of the bright lights, the sirens going down beneath me, Zion's Bank right in my view, Table Rock's cross, glowing brighter than ever. I get down to think, walk around a little bit, and I look over the railing. Right before I'm about to throw myself off, I see someone walking on the 3rd story.
What Talon doesn't realize is that dispatch has been called. There's a young woman on the 3rd story who is displaying some concerning behavior. The police are there to check on her and make sure that she's okay.
Before I'm about to throw myself off, I see someone walking on the 3rd story. Doesn't really matter to me because, as I've said before, I was there for one reason and one reason only, and that was to fly. So, there I am. I look up, take everything in one last time, and before I feel myself falling, I look down to see that girl on the 3rd story falling before me. I see her hit the ground and I freeze. For those of you that took this Strengths Finder test, my big strength is empathy. So I was able to put myself in her shoes without ever leaving that 8th story. I was able to die without losing my pulse.
What do you think the odds are that 2 people end up at the same place, same side of a huge parking garage, at the same time of night, attempting to do the same thing, to end their lives, and that one person's jump saved another person's life? In fact, they both lived. Not a coincidence, definitely divine intervention, and Talon's second chance at life.
So as I sat there, mortified, trying to process everything that just happened, watching the police rush to the scene, put her on a stretcher, put her in the back of an ambulance, I think to myself, what the hell am I doing up here? I'm 16 years old and trying to end my life.
Did you hear that? He regretted what he was about to do. I'm reminded of a story I saw on social media by a man named Kevin Hines. He had attempted to end his life by throwing himself off the Golden Gate Bridge. He said him and the 19 other survivors that had attempted the same thing had one thing in common: instant regret the millisecond their hands left the rail. Let me just repeat that. They instantly regretted it, every single one of them, the second their hands left the rail.
And I break down, just start crying hysterically. I take the elevator back down, and I sit on the curb. The police call my parents down, and my sister. And while I'm waiting there on the curb, my mom gets there, and she doesn't say anything. She just starts crying on my shoulder.
It was almost midnight when I get a call from a man claiming to be a police officer. He says he's got my son downtown and I need to go get him. I remember telling the man I thought I was being scammed or somebody was like messing with me, because I'm like, no, my son is in his room asleep. So I made my way over to my son's room, and I opened the door, and my heart sunk because he was gone and his bedroom window was open. I went downstairs, told my mom, hey, they got Talon downtown. I got to go pick him up, just keep an eye on things. I made my way back upstairs, went into my oldest daughter, JC's room, and said, keep an eye on things around here. The cops have got Talon downtown, and I've got to go pick him up. So as I'm headed downtown, I'm frustrated. Like, why did my son sneak out? And I'm thinking, the cops have picked him up for curfew. I'm going to have to deal with a whole bunch of stuff. And in my daughter's world, JC, she's his best friend. They're as close as brother and sister could be. She gets on the phone with her friend and she's like, man, my brother's gonna get his butt whooped. My mom's on the way downtown and the police have him and he's in a lot of trouble. And she goes over to his bedroom and she notices something. His phone is on his dresser, and she's thinking to himself, he would never leave his phone here to go meet his friends downtown. So she picks up the phone and she opens it and she sees his 6-page suicide letter. My mom describes what she heard as a blood-curdling scream come from upstairs. I can't imagine in those moments how terrified and upset and sad and distraught that my daughter must have been in those moments, thinking that I was headed downtown to recover the body of my son. So I arrive at the scene, and there is police tape everywhere. There's cop cars, there's cops, and I see my son sitting on the curb, and I am thinking, where are his friends? And oh my gosh, what has he done? It looks like a serious crime scene, and I'm thinking the absolute worst, which is really hard for me because Talon was such a good kid. He wasn't a deviant troublemaker. He was really responsible and respectful. So I'm trying to process what I've just come upon. And I get out of the car, and I start walking towards my son, and a cop intercepts me. And he said, I think you should know that your son was here tonight to end his life. And I remember in that moment the sadness that I felt, that I almost had just lost my son. And then I remember the emotion of feeling such gratitude that he did not succeed in what he had gone there to attempt to do. I honestly had no words. I walked over to my son. I sat down next to him on the curb. I laid my shoulder on his head, and we both just cried together.
They took me back to the house, where they talked to me about getting me into Intermountain Hospital. But as far as I thought I knew, Intermountain was for crazy people. And standing on top of an 8-story building, trying to kill myself was not crazy in any way.
Oh, the resistance of my son. He was not going to Intermountain Hospital. That was for crazy people. He was so petrified of the backlash and the name calling and the bullying that was going to happen if anybody found out that he was in Intermountain Hospital. That's what our society has created. Shame to need help. And that's not okay. I told my son, I said, if you don't go, I'm tethering myself to your leg and you will be with me 24/7. He started to think about it a little bit more. After some long conversations in his room, my oldest daughter finally convinced him to go.
After about an hour and a half, they finally convinced me to check into Intermountain Hospital, where I spent 10 long, timeless days. No clocks, off schedule. I met very close acquaintances in there, who I still keep in touch with to this day, because their stories touched mine the way that I'm sure mine has touched yours. But while I was in there, I had a lot of time to think. I thought about what I was doing up on that 8th-story garage building, why I was there. Teenagers are good at suppressing their feelings and not showing it to anyone. I'm an enthusiastic, outgoing boy who never really shows anything but happiness. So of course that led all my close friends and family, to the question of why did he do it and where did things go wrong? So I decided to become a teen advocate for teen suicide prevention, because who better to relate to your problems than another teen who's been through them?
Talon shared a story with the Idaho Statesman. He went on to speak publicly at Story Night, and This Is My Brave. It was so fun to watch. Something just clicked in Talon, and he got it. He had figured out how to be happy. He became the most enthusiastic, positive person that you knew. He went from somebody that felt like they were alone to being a friend to anybody and everybody without hesitation, expectation, or judgment. I feel like what I saw in him was his life purpose had shifted. He was going to be the most positive person everybody knew, and he was going to uplift and encourage every single person that he came into contact with. Talon had an amazing, forward-moving, happy, positive energy that you could feel the second you walked into a room and he was there, and you noticed when he was gone. We get one shot at life. Sometimes we get a second chance. But I think we all just genuinely want to be happy. And I think we have a better shot at happiness if we connect back to real relationships. Real quality time, one-on-one, hugging, loving on each other, getting to know each other, sharing each other's stories, real relationships. And get away from the cyberspace and the social media and our constant time that we spend on our phones. We're so disconnected. I think if we look at each other more like brothers and sisters, then we might be a little bit kinder. We might be more merciful. We might grant each other a little bit more grace. We'll begin to inspire, uplift, motivate each other. The world needs more heroes. And if you don't know what your purpose is, then be an ear to bend. Be a shoulder to cry on. Be a voice for somebody that cannot speak up for themselves. Make sure that there is not one person that is alone in this world and without a friend. Make this world that is sometimes unbearable a more bearable place for those who are struggling. And always be compassionate towards people, because you never know who is just trying to get through one more day.
About 2 weeks before I was planning my suicide, I was on a road trip with my older sister down in Utah. I was talking to her about a reoccurring dream that I was having, where I was getting hit by a bus. And it was so lucid that I could feel everything. I could feel the initial impact and my bones grinding against the pavement. So I thought that that was the way I was going to die. But as I kept pondering why I was having that dream and the thought of death, it all just built up inside me, and I just felt like my existence didn't really matter.
The tragic irony in Talon's dream is that 5 months ago on Thanksgiving Day, Talon lost his life in a fatal car accident. So I understand too well what it's like to be in a deep, dark place. I understand the pain of not wanting to live even one day in a world without my son in it. I understand the struggle of getting out of bed. I believe we all have a purpose in this world. We are instruments here to do God's work. So listen to your God nudges. I am so thankful to my son and his example. He reminds me that happiness is a choice, that living life on purpose and with purpose is a choice, that we can find blessings and be grateful for the things that we do have. I have 3 beautiful daughters, 2 of which were in the car with Talon when it flipped 3 times. I am so thankful they were wearing their seatbelts. I'm gonna leave you with one last message from my son, because he's pretty cool and he kind of knows what he's talking about.
As one of my favorite quotes from the movie Kung Fu Panda states, "Yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. Today is a gift." I guess that's why we call it the present. Life isn't hard. The trials that come with life are. And life has its storms. But there's a rainbow after every storm. You just have to be willing to brave the storm first. Thank you.
Talon, may your light be ever bright. May your message be ever strong. May your legacy live forever long. I'm so blessed that you chose me to be your mom, and I'm so